It's an absolute joy and pleasure and a privilege to be here, Dr. Karan Singh. You have been in public life for almost 75 years.
In fact, just over 75.
Over 75. A veteran politician, diplomat, eminent author, and of course, regent and Sadr Riyasat, and then governor of Jammu and Kashmir. So that's the starting point of my interaction. What is the way forward in Kashmir now?
The way forward?
The way forward.
I wonder what you mean by the way forward. You see, in any case, time is moving on, so we are moving forward. What has now happened politically is the whole game has changed after the abrogation of 370. Before that, the main question was how much autonomy the state should get. That was the kashmakash, if you like. The state asking for more autonomy, centre wanting to give less. With this, the whole thing is now changed. No question of autonomy arises now. The state has become, in fact, not even a full-fledged state. And that is something that is not acceptable. We've been actually demoted, if you like, to union territory. We were the matha of Hindustan. आप तो मुकुट हैं हिंदुस्तान के, यही कहते हैं ना. अब तो मुकुट छोड़ के ना हिमाचल और हरियाणा से भी नीचे आ गए हैं. So that is something which has to be remedied, and I'm sure the government of India will do it as soon as possible.
So you would want the statehood to be restored?
Definitely, a full statehood. No ifs and buts, proper statehood. If you say you're going to integrate it, it must be like Odisha or like Assam or like any other state then.
Would that resolve the fundamental issues of the state?
The fundamental issues, you see, just a minute. Along with statehood, what we want are domiciliary laws, like they have in Himachal, where everybody can't buy land in Himachal. So these are domiciliary laws under sections 271, 72. There are more sections than that, 370, sorry. So that is one thing. As far as the problems are concerned, we've had an election at last, after what, 10 years. And it was a very interesting election. It threw up a very, very clear mandate. All 29 Hindu seats went to the BJP, and vast majority of the Muslim seats went to the National Conference. So that was expected. That reflects the binary character of the state. Ever since my ancestors founded the state in 1846, and we ruled for 100 years, this situation was always there. The only difference was then the Dogras were in command and the Muslims were, as it were, number two. Now the situation changed after 1947. The Muslims became predominant and the Hindus remained a little down. So this is the point, how to get a balance between Kashmir and Jammu. Developmental balance, financial balance, political balance.
I read in your autobiography that decades ago you gave a proposal, a public proposal.
You remember that?
Yes, I remember that. I read it here. And says that Ladakh should be made into a centrally administered territory.
Which has now become.
And Jammu should be merged with Himachal, and Kashmir should exist as a
That was a very revolutionary suggestion. And everybody jumped down my throat. Everybody. The Kashmiris, the Dogras, the government of India. But it was there. I put it on the table.
Is it still there?
I don't think it's there now, no. Because now you see there's a great difference. Jammu has also developed a great deal now. At that time, Jammu was much more backward than it is today. Today, Jammu has its own personality. I don't think it would like to be merged with any other state now. But उस वक्त की बात जो मैं कह रहा था, at that time, it was a revolutionary suggestion and a very bold one because I stuck my neck out. But my shoulders are broad enough, man. Whatever I have, I should put on the table.
So do you have any such radical suggestion on the table now?
I don't think so. I think that now the only radical suggestion is a reinstatement of statehood plus domiciliary laws to safeguard the people of the state and a genuine attempt to strike a fair balance between Jammu and Kashmir. So as you know, you've travelled a lot, Jammu and Kashmir are very different. They were never together. 1846 में हमारे बुजुर्गों ने जो रियासत बनाई, after that they became Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit, Baltistan and Ladakh. It was a huge state that the Dogras built up, mainly through conquest and Himalayan activities at that height in those days without any of the modern equipment. So it was a great feat. In fact, the Dogras, if I may digress for a minute, are the only people who really extended the territory of India. We've had great heroes, mind you, in different, we've had Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and Maharana Pratap and others, great heroes. They fought within the country, obviously. And they fought very bravely against people who were aggressing. But we extended the territories. I don't think Gilgit, Baltistan and Ladakh were part of India to that extent as we made it. I don't think the Dogras have ever got adequate credit for that. Textbooks वगैरह में कोई जिक्र नहीं होता उसका.
I heard you say at a public meeting that what these two men, Maharaja Hari Singh and Sheikh Abdullah, could have done together is a great might have been of Indian history. What did you mean by that?
Well, what I meant was that if there had been some understanding between these two people, one representing the Dogras and the feudal order, the other representing the Kashmiris and the democratic impulse, anything could have happened. You remember in, where was it, in Lebanon, I think, there was a Christian president and a Muslim prime minister. Something like that could have emerged, possibly. But it was not to be. I mean, they were totally different.
That's what I was coming to. I mean, two very different persons with different impulses, different backgrounds, different interests. And of course, I mean, your father was the ruler of the state, and here was Sheikh Abdullah, who was a very popular leader. So, a meeting of minds would have been very difficult.
वो तो ऐसे ही मैंने कहा ना, might have been. It was just speculation. There was never, well, there were some possibilities in between. Some people did try and get them together, but no, it was not possible.
You had a personal equation with Sheikh Abdullah, and
I did actually. I had a personal equation with Sheikh Abdullah. I had a personal equation with Jawaharlal Nehru. He was my mentor. I grew up reading his books in the Doon School, and the Discovery of India and his autobiography and all. So he was one of the iconic figures when I was growing up, and he represented all the urges and all the dreams of young people of the new India. That was one thing. Sheikh Abdullah, I had a somewhat edgy relationship, but nonetheless a cordial relationship. Because I was sent in as regent under rather difficult circumstances.
You have mentioned in this book, in autobiography, that people close to you used to call you Tiger.
That is my pet name from childhood. One day apparently he and Maharaj Jodhpur were sitting, Umed Singh ji, and I crawled in and he said, look, ये tiger कब की तरह चल रहा है, तो उस दिन से नाम ही मेरा टाइगर पड़ गया. Pandit ji, all his letters to me are my dear tiger, आपने पढ़ा होगा in the compendium. My father and his friends, that generation, all called me Tiger.
So you enjoyed a real equation with Pandit Nehru and thereafter with Indira ji. And then
yes, Pandit Nehru was a mentor, and for 15 years, from 49 till 1964, I was in touch with him. Then Indira Gandhi, of course, was closer to me in age. And when I wanted to get out of J&K and get into the broader Indian politics, she took me into her cabinet at the age of 36, which at that time was considered to be a very young age, still is, I think.
Yes.
And I was with her for 10 years in the cabinet. I saw her finest moment, Bangladesh, and her darkest moment, the emergency. Sab dekha maine.
And thereafter you had an equation with Mr. Rajiv Gandhi and Mr. Sanjay Gandhi.
Rajiv and Sanjay were growing up when we used to go first to the house. One was 7, one was 9. I saw them growing up. Rajiv he was in my ministry actually, he was a pilot. I was aviation minister, but he's a very, very good man. That was a terrible tragedy that he was blown up like that.
Given this background of family history and an equation with successive generations, what is your equation with Rahul Gandhi?
No, Sonia Gandhi, don't forget. So Rahul came much later. Rahul to bilkul was hard. I saw, remember when he was born. Rahul ke baad, Sonia was the one with whom then I was interacting. And as you know, unke kehne se maine Lucknow mein I had fought an election also against Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And she gave me 3 terms in the Raj Sabha, consecutive terms. So I had very good relations with her. I was also made president of ICCR, and I was also in the UNESCO executive board. A number of, I wasn't taken into her cabinet, but a number of assignments were given to me, which suited me very well. Then we come to Rahul much later. Rahul is a very nice young man. I am very fond of him. He used to be in close touch with me. Recently, he has not been in such close touch. But he's improving, I think. Every year he's improving. And I think he's learning on the job.
Mm. And do you see a potential?
I see a potential. I mean, you know, potential means whether he'll become prime minister or not one day is a matter of speculation.
And Priyanka Gandhi?
Priyanka is very bright. She's a bright girl. She sparkles. I've known her also, bachpan se. She's very bright.
I'll just take you through a statement of Rahul Gandhi to which many of the former royals reacted very adversely. The East India Company choked India by partnering with, bribing and threatening our more pliant Maharajas and Nawabs.
Yes, well, that may have been true, more pliant, meaning the ones they were dealing with. I'm not holding a brief for all the princes, but he said luckily more pliant, that means not everybody.
Now coming back to what happened in recent years, the abrogation of 370, did you approve of it?
Well, I wasn't consulted first of all, so the question of my approval or disapproval didn't arise. But when it happened, I was also in a dilemma. I realized that there was a large section of the state who would be very opposed to it. On the other hand, there were some who were going to welcome it. So I took a very nuanced view. I said, some things are positive in this. For example, women's rights are being secured. Previously, as you know, if a Kashmiri girl or a Dogra girl married outside the state, she'd lose her property. That's being remedied. Then there were vast sections of the society who couldn't vote. The Pakistan se refugees aaye the, they didn't have the vote. They're being empaneled and certain reservations are made. So some positive things have happened.
You know, given your long association with Jammu and Kashmir, if I were to ask you what is the lasting solution to the issue?
I don't know. There is no lasting solution to anything. You know, things go on and on forever. But I think the present solution that I can think of is to have a full-fledged state and a proper balance between the two regions. If that goes smoothly and the relationship between the state and the center goes smoothly, I think that's the best that we can hope for.
Dr. Singh, something about your own personal political career.
Well, you know, I got into a political career at the age of 18 because the situation developed in such a way that my father was obliged to leave the state under very painful circumstances. The reason was, of course, Sheikh Abdullah. And why was Sheikh Abdullah? Because we had gone to that United Nations and had gone and agreed to a plebiscite. Maybe we needn't have gone to the United Nations. In fact, I don't think we need have gone. One of the few mistakes, if I may say so, that Panditji made. I think Lord Mountbatten was the one who pushed him into that. And so there was, then Sheikh Abdullah had his anti-Dogra sort of terribly strong anti-Dogra feeling all his life. So finally he went to Panditji and said, I cannot win the election as long as Maharaja Hari Singh is in the state. So we were called to Delhi, and there Sardar Patel broke the news to my father and mother. सिर्फ उन्होंने कहा आप कुछ देर के लिए बाहर रहिए, लेकिन महज उनकी अस्थियां वापस आए. Only his ashes came back with me.
Then you mention in your autobiography that your relationship with your father was complex and there were events that cast a shadow.
Let me come back again. So you said public life. So when he had to leave the state, he appointed me, he didn't abdicate. He appointed me regent. So 20th June 1949, I was appointed regent of the state. So 20th June 2024, 75 years pure. That is where we are counting the 75 years from. Because that was a public office also.
Yes. And you have held important positions in...
Then after that, I became Sadr Riyasat. That was when the tension arose. You see, what happened was that it was going in the normal course, but Sheikh Abdullah had to sort of rub it in. And we want to abolish the monarchy. Monarchy is so यूं ही खत्म हो रही थी सारी. So they went through a big thing. We've abolished the Dogra monarchy, and they put a big illuminations in Kashmir, and they were in seventh heaven. So that irritated everybody, obviously, including my father. And then the constitution came into being. I called the constitution into being, Constituent Assembly, and they came up with the idea of the elected Sadr Riyasat. And they offered me the first election. Now that was where, some people, my father, maybe his loyal supporters, thought that, hey, this man has insulted your father, he's insulted the Dogras. How can you go and sit as his nominee as Sadr Riyasat? That was a view. And that was what made it very difficult for me. Because on the one hand, Jawaharlal ji wanted me to accept the post. On the other hand, I knew that my father would not be happy. So that was where the tension in a way began. I suppose it was an inevitable fallout of the political debate. You see, I realized that the monarchy had lost its importance, that the future lay in democracy. I wanted to be part of that democracy. I was a young, idealistic Indian. I wanted to be part of the new India. And that path was through Jawaharlal Nehru, not through Maharaja Hari Singh. Kya karta main? You can appreciate what a difficult situation.
Absolutely. So that complication that arose out of that political situation, that could never be erased.
No, not really, not really. I mean, we went Harsal jaake, we used to touch his feet and sit there, my wife and I, and meet him. So there was never any overt sort of tension or anything. I mean, in those days you couldn't even dream of having a overt thing with your father. Don't forget, this was a long time ago. But yes, he was never fully reconciled to that.
Taking you back in time, and because you mentioned a lot of your princely days.
Let me just add one point. The Nizam of Hyderabad, who fought against India, actually fought against India, was made Raj Pramukh. And Maharaja Hari Singh, who signed the instrument of accession, was exiled. Can you see the unfairness of the whole situation? He could have been adjusted somewhere, he could have been asked to do something for the country. उनको तो सजे जो खिलाफ लड़े उनको तो आपने राज प्रमुख बना दिया, और जिन्होंने आपको लिख के दिया उनको आपने जला वतन कर दिया.
तो जाहिर आपके लिए कश्मकश का दौर था वो.
हाँ, वो भी था. आगे चलिए, आप पूछ रहे.
जी, I was about to ask you about your princely days, and of course I discovered from this book that at a very young age you were secluded, in the sense that you were taken away from your parents.
From the parents and put into a separate establishment. My father decided that. After the age of 5 I lived with my mother. At the age of 6 I was put into a separate establishment with 2 companions and British guardians. And from 6 till 11, for 5 years, age of 11, that was how we lived. At 11 then I was sent to Doon School, which is a very tough school. It wasn't a princely school as it were. But there again my father was very far-sighted. He didn't send me to Mayo College or to Rajkumar College. He wanted me to get prepared for the future.
I get the impression from your book that since you had to live away from your parents from a very early age, you had a separate princely establishment, it created some kind of an emotional vacuum inside of you. Is that
Yes.
so?
Well, the princely establishment was not a very, it was pretty strict because the British guardians were there. We had the timetable every day and all. It wasn't a very sort of, not a spoilt, and that's why my father took me away. They said if he stays in the palace, he's bound to be spoilt, particularly by the mother. They would take him away. But maybe there's an emotional vacuum, you're right. I was allowed to see my mother 3 times a week for 1.5 hours, and my father once a week. It's a curious way of growing up.
As a young prince, what was your life like? What was the schedule?
Well, young prince meaning 5-6 साल तो ये रहे guardians. उस वक्त तो we did the usual things, learnt riding and we went out, learnt cricket and that sort of thing. So nothing particularly. Doon School was hardly a princely atmosphere. It was a tough atmosphere. And then as soon as I got out of Doon School, within a year or two, these changes. I developed this trouble in my hip. So I was in plaster of Paris for 1.5 years. Can you imagine? Zama.
So I have written here the title you had, Shri Yuvraj Karan Singh Ji Bahadur.
That was my title when I was born. But that meant nothing to me. I mean, who wanted a title?
And your birthday was a holiday in the
It was
entire
a public
kingdom.
holiday.
So from then till now you're Dr. Karan Singh and you're a citizen and you have spent about 75 years in public life. Do you think you adapted well to changing times?
I think so. In fact, not only did I adapt well to changing times, if I may say so, my historical achievement has been spearheading the transition from feudalism to democracy. I was the first prince to go into public life, go into cabinet, बाद में दूसरे आए. So that was my role.
And you mentioned that you were the first prince to turn your palace into a hotel.
Turned the palace into a hotel. I gave away a huge orchard to the university. I did a lot of things which, I thought were worth doing.
Since you mentioned your relationship with Sheikh Abdullah.
Sheikh Abdullah, he was somewhat condescending, but he was all right. But then when the situation politically turned, and I had to signed his dismissal order and all. Obviously from that time he was very angry. We met only after 14 years then. And I was wondering, when we meet, how will it be? So I must say to his credit, as soon as he came and said, "Hello Tiger, kaise ho?" So all the tension disappeared.
And then the next 2 generations, Farooq Abdullah and Omar Abdullah.
वो तो मेरे अच्छे. Farooq I have very good relations with. In fact, Farooq was responsible to get me back into politics.
I see.
When I lost after my 4 elections that I won from Udhampur, मैंने बेवकूफ़ी तो हर एक पे होती है. So मैंने बेवकूफ़ी की. I changed my constituency, went to Jammu and lost. So after that I really gave up politics. I was out of politics for 12 years. My wife and I traveled around the world. We did lots of other interesting things. Farooq Abdullah came into that room, दूसरे कमरे where you met me. My wife and I and my son Ajaz Shatru were sitting there. And Sheikh Abdullah said to me, मैं इसको कहता हूँ, जैसे उनका जो कहने का तरीका है, referring to me, मैं इसको कहता हूँ कि सेंट्रल हॉल में ये नहीं आता है. मैंने कहा शेख साहब मैं तो एक्स MP के रूप में सेंट्रल हॉल में नहीं जाए. आप क्यों कह रहे हैं एक्स MP? हम आपको MP बनाएंगे बस. आप हमें बेटा दे दीजिए. I gave my son to Ajaz Shatru to him. And lo and behold, the next time he got me elected to Parliament. He got me back into politics. उसके बाद जितना कुछ मैंने किया, right, all the ending in 3 terms in Rajya Sabha, thanks to Farooq Abdullah.
And what's your opinion of Omar Abdullah?
Umar is a very balanced young man. Sheikh Farooq साहब तो बड़े round की आदमी है ना, रंगीले आदमी है. He's full of fun. And when we had a party here on my 90th birthday, he was dancing most of the time. You know, he is one of those people who's full of joie de vivre.
Yes, of course.
But Umar is a balanced young man. I think he'll go far. I hope he will. Because, you know, he's got a second chance now.
I wish to quote from your autobiography and seek some more thoughts on that. Indeed, it would be correct to say that the basic difference between Sheikh Abdullah and me lay in the fact that while he looked upon himself as a Kashmiri who happened to find himself in India, I considered myself an Indian who happened to find himself in Kashmir.
That's very clear. Priorities. You see, Sheikh Abdullah was a Kashmiri leader. He was a remarkable leader, mind you. The Kashmiris will never see a leader like him. Kashmiri used to be a reviled race. Single-handedly, he brought them up. And he was a great orator in Urdu and in Kashmiri. But his political interests lay only in the Kashmiri-speaking areas. They were not able to cross into the Dogra areas or the Ladakhi areas and all. And therefore, he was basically a Kashmiri leader, as he said. Whereas I looked upon myself as an Indian who happened to be born. This puts it very well, I think.
As you say, you have completed 75 years and more in public life. And I look back at your career as a journalist. I think I've been watching you for almost 3.5 decades as a journalist. There have been talks off and on, I've heard, about you being offered the position of the President of India. Did you come close to that office ever?
Shall I tell you the story? Because I think it's pretty public now. In 2006, after Professor Abdul Kalam's term completed, there was a very strong move that I could become president. Congress needed a candidate. Sonia Gandhi said to me that मैंने 2 नाम भेजे हैं. I know who the second name is. I will not name it. Maybe that was the preferred name for her. I do not know. So when the meeting, you see, we were dependent on the left front somehow. याद रखिए हमारे 140 थे सिर्फ. We only had 140. The left front, I think, had about 100 or 98 or something. So we were dependent on them for the government. So CPI, CPM, and Congress sat. So Sonia Gandhi mentioned the first name, which was shot down immediately with some rude remark, which I don't want to mention. Then she mentioned my name. They said, he's a scholar and he's done very well. But you know, we are a socialist country. How can we elect a Maharaja as president? That was that.
That was it. Now as we look back at your long years...
Yes, I have no regrets about not being president.
Do you still sing?
Yes, I still sing. हफ्ते के 1 बार रियाज करता हूँ. आज है रियाज 4 बजे.
और क्या कौन से राग आपके पसंदीदा
मेरे राग सब पसंदीदा तो मालकाओं से भोपाली है और कल्याण ठाट के शुद्ध कल्याण है, शंकरा है, देशकार है, इस किस्म के राग और मालकाओं से दुर्गा.
Most grateful, sir, for your time, and
it's a great pleasure talking to you.
And it's wishing you long years of public life and a long and healthy life. Thank you so much for giving time to PTI.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Zaman.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.